Natalie Sadler with Politically Unstable. This week, I'm joined by Cliff May, who is the president and founder of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Hi, Cliff. Thanks for joining me this week.
Good to see you as always.
So we're going to keep this tight, focused on Israel. As you know, this week there's a draft UN resolution going around that's penned by the U.S. This is based on reporting from the Wall Street Journal, saying that the Biden administration is pushing for a temporary ceasefire, conditioned with the release of all hostages. They also are saying that there shouldn't be an impending Israeli offense in Rafah because there's too many people there and it's too dangerous. What is your take on this latest news? And do you see tensions rising between the Biden administration and Bibi Netanyahu?
Well, a few things. Look, it's not good news, and it's not a wise move. I'll be cautious and say if it accentuates the need for hostages to be released before anything else, okay. But then that has to be understood that unless Hamas and its leaders in Gaza, who are probably in tunnels under either Khan Yunis or Rafah, the two southern cities, unless they release those hostages, nothing else happens. They are reluctant to release those hostages, obviously. They are probably surrounded by those hostages who are barely clinging to life. The Biden administration should recognize that it is absolutely essential for the Israelis, after what they suffered on 10/7, which was the worst single-day slaughter of Jews since the Holocaust, and understanding that Hamas has said we will do this again and again and again if we can, it's vital that the Israelis be allowed to defeat Hamas. It's also vital for Palestinians because they otherwise will be ruled by Hamas and they will not even be able to say what some of them no doubt think is, why did Hamas bring this damage and destruction onto us? Now, the Israelis will do what they can and have been doing what they can to spare non-combatants, but this war needs to get to a completion. There was a reason why Churchill and Roosevelt said in World War II, we need unconditional surrender. We're not going to make a deal with the Nazis.
So last week you wrote us a column basically outlining 4 different options for the Hamas leadership right now. You said the least likely was unconditional surrender and then the release of the hostages. How do you see this playing out? Because the Biden administration is under intense political pressure by its progressive wing to stop the genocide. They call it stop the genocide and a ceasefire now. And they're also pushing for a 2-state solution, which has never worked in the history of it being pursued. But what do you think the ultimate end of this conflict is going to be?
Yeah, let's first understand there is no genocide. Genocide is what Hamas pledges it will do to Israel and Israelis. That's in the Hamas charter. It's very clear. If there were genocide in Gaza, you wouldn't have more Palestinians in Gaza now than you did 20 years ago, more Palestinians in the West Bank than you did 20 years ago. That's not. As for non-combatant deaths, this is a problem, not least because Hamas, they're very open about this, uses innocent civilians as human shields. But even so, the ratio of non-combatants to combatants is probably about 2-to-1, which is actually quite extraordinary. And this has been, historians such as Andrew Roberts has made this point. He's made it to the House of Lords. John Spencer at the Institute for Urban Warfare has said this is an extraordinary record given the conditions of urban warfare that the Israelis face and the human shield. So that's not what is happening. And again, it could end tomorrow if Hamas would simply release the hostages, come out of the tunnels, and say, that's it, we're laying down our arms. That's all it would take. And that should be the pressure, not the pressure on Israel. I don't think it's likely that Hamas leaders in the tunnels surrender. I think it is possible that they will say, okay, can we get a deal where we go into exile abroad? And in exchange for that, we'll stop fighting. They can't. Our battalions will stop fighting. About 18 out of 24 Hamas battalions have been destroyed at this point. There's only a few more left, probably 4 in Rafah, one that's being taken down right now in Khan Yunis. If Yahya Sinwar, the most important Hamas leader in Gaza, could go to Algeria say he might want that. Hard to know what he's thinking
Mhm.
after all this time in the tunnels. He believes in what he's doing. What needs to be understood is Yahya Sinwar and Hamas are not interested in a two-state solution. They're very clear about that. They've been clear about that in recent days. They do not want a Palestinian state living in peace next to Israel. They want to replace the Jewish state of Israel with an Islamic emirate that would be part of a coming caliphate. That's what they say. So when people say a two-state solution, you have to ask, what do you think this will solve? And the Israelis are very much against it because if this state were to become, for example, a proxy of the Islamic Republic of Iran, Iran's very cruel rulers, as is Hezbollah or the Houthis or others, that would mean that this state would be immediately at war with Israel, and that would solve nothing. They would maybe be able to get arms better than they have, but they've been getting arms from Iran very well, probably under the Egyptian border with Gaza over all these years. The arsenal has been tremendous, which is why they're still firing missiles at Israel to this day, and they still have plenty of RPGs and ammunition.
So the Biden administration and Jake Sullivan and Antony Blinken have kind of alluded to this, that they're pushing a two-state solution and they want and they want to work with a Palestinian Authority. Um, the question that comes to my mind here, because let me give you a quote that the leader of the Palestinian Authority said just this weekend. He said, "Palestinians' suffering did not start on October 7th, but it started with the creation of Israel." And then, quote, "If we don't deal with the cosmetics, you should deal with the roots of the we don't deal if we don't deal with the cosmetics, you should deal with the roots of the problem." And to me, the roots of the problem is Israel as a nation state itself. But these are the people that the Biden administration is looking to negotiate for leadership within this new state of Palestine, who who are good faith in a two-state solution. Who who how would that second state even come to be, and who are we negotiating with?
Yeah, there are people are saying it's two-state solution because they don't seem to have any better ideas. But yes, if you're going to have a two-state solution, there's one state, there's Israel. The other state would be a Palestinian state. Who would rule it? Would it be Hamas? Would it be Palestinian Islamic Jihad? Would it be the Palestinian Authority? You're just quoting them as saying they still don't recognize that there is a Jewish state that has a right to exist. I'd also point out that there's very few ways in which Gaza has not de facto been a state since Hamas took it over in 2007, which was 2 years after the Israelis withdrew from Gaza. They withdrew every soldier, they withdrew every farmer, they pulled up every cemetery, pulled out every synagogue. I mean, what does Liechtenstein or Luxembourg have that Gaza doesn't have, except maybe a vote in the UN General Assembly? If Hamas, while ruling Gaza, had said, "Okay, we want statehood," here's how they could have gotten it. They would have said, "Let's have good relations with Israel. Let's spend the international funds that are coming in, not on a network of tunnels that are longer than even the London Underground. Let's create a Singapore on the sea, and I bet the Israelis will recognize us and deal with us, and we will have a state." They, but
Nine
that's it.
minutes.
That's only formal.
So I think there's a misconception with especially America's youth right now that are attending colleges and have kind of got wrapped up into this ceasefire pro-Palestinian movement. The Palestinian people themselves, if you look after poll after poll after poll, support Hamas, would vote for Hamas again if they were given a state. Um, can you kind of define to our listeners kind of the indoctrination of the Palestinian people from I mean, there was some after October 7th that were cheering within Gaza. And these are the people that we're supposed to refer to as innocent civilians that really, have just been subjugated to Israeli occupation and Hamas rule.
Certainly in Gaza and to a great extent in the West Bank, the school system, run, I'm afraid, by UN agency largely, has indoctrinated people, hate Jews, hate Israelis. We are in war against them. And over the past years, since Hamas took over in 2007, there have been various conflicts with Israel. The Israelis have been careful. They have tried very hard not to have collateral damage. So it's possible for people to say, look, Hamas hits the Jews, that's good. It's not that inconvenient for us. Now it is. Now, there's no question Palestinians in Gaza are suffering. Unless Hamas is defeated, Palestinians in Gaza can't change their minds and say, maybe this wasn't such a good idea. What did Hamas think would happen after they invaded Israel, crossed the border, slaughtered innocent men, women, and children, raped people, cut off babies' heads, abducted? What did they think the Israelis would do to us? They would do what they have done. They would fight. They would fight back. They would fight a war. It is essential that Hamas be destroyed. It would be. It gets back to what you were saying. The Palestinian cause should be to live in their own state in freedom, hopefully in democracy. It's not easy to do, but live and peacefully coexist with the Israelis. The Palestinian cause, as Hamas sees it, is to eradicate, to exterminate Israel and as many Israelis as possible. And that is simply the case. And it is an outspokenly, candidly genocidal movement. And I think a lot of the kids on the campuses and our schools are in bad shape these days don't understand that. They say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. They don't understand that they don't know what river that is. It's the Jordan. They don't know what sea that is. It's the Mediterranean. And it means there will be no Israel left. Look, where Hamas rules, are Palestinians free? I don't think they are. Again, that doesn't mean they don't support Hamas or haven't supported Hamas in its desire to wipe out Israel. But they may have second thoughts after this war because it's such a destructive war. They may think in time, do we want to do this again? Our lives were not so bad past. If you've seen on Twitter what Gaza actually looked like, it was not a dreadful place. And the mayor of Gaza City, had an op-ed in the New York Times saying we had parks, we had restaurants, we had cultural centers, we had theaters, we had libraries, all that. The Israelis were not going to destroy all that before just because missiles were coming in and hitting them. This time around, the Israelis went at it, and they went at it again for the very good reason that Hamas had headquarters and tunnels under mosques, under UN facilities, under schools, everywhere. And that meant that there was a lot of destruction, but Hamas is responsible for that destruction. Hamas is responsible for whatever deaths there are on both sides.
Well, I mean, for all of those chanting ceasefire now, there was a ceasefire on October 6th, and Israel was not the one who broke that. Thank you so much, Cliff, for joining me this week. I really appreciate your time and your insight.
Thanks, Kelly.